Okay, so for today, we have titanium buff, raw umber, and Payne's gray. So what we're going to do, and I have a filbert. It's a small one. It doesn't matter. It could be a round, any brush that would give you small kind of brush strokes, dots, not dots, kind of you can control it to have a small dabs. I'm going to take raw umber and Payne's gray, mix them because Payne's gray has blue in it, and I'm going to take titanium buff, a small amount, because we're going to start with the dark in the back. So we want that bluish, grayish brown in there. This is where the shadow is. Okay, let's take that. And I'm going to start right about here. So small dispersed ones first, so it gives depth. And then I'm going to take a bit of more blue in here. It will dry darker, so it will be perfect by the time it's dry. Could do something like that here. It doesn't have to be defined. I'm going to take more of the Payne's gray, put it down here, because we want this to stay dark. This is the darkest part. This area here is the darkest part. And now I'm going to come back, take my brown, touch of the titanium buff, so the more I come forward to this part, the more I'm going to see highlighted brushstroke. More, I can see the brushstroke more. So this is dark and this is lighter, slowly. If you see black in between, that's fine. Don't try to get rid of that black. I'm kind of dabbing and moving my brush. Okay, this is kind of on the same level. Okay. If I go back with my colors, my brush stroke, darker. So meaning I'm using Payne's gray. I come forward, I'm going to take more of the brown and the Payne's gray, and I'm going to put it here. It doesn't have to be dabbing the whole time. It could be some parts, could be just painting. But because we're painting with a small brush, we get texture. So when I'm painting something like this, I'm just taking right now raw umber, and I'm going to put raw umber here. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is just I don't want the whole thing to look exactly the same color. So if I'm using Payne's gray and raw umber mixed together, sometimes I would use just raw umber with no Payne's gray. It just gives it a nice variety of colors in here, and it looks much more interesting when you see different colors instead of seeing one color the whole time, repeating. Now I'm going to go back, pick up Payne's Gray, raw umber, mix them, and go back. So I have here a bit of brown only. Keep paying attention where the shadows are. I have a kind of a bit of a guideline here. So when I'm painting, I don't have to worry about the darks and lights, where the shadow is and the highlight. So now I'm doing the same thing, maybe adding a little bit more brown and a little bit more of the titanium buff so I can see the brush stroke. Do this bit of water in here. Okay. Go back to brown and Payne's Gray and a bit of titanium buff. The best part in this is the light, the light part. It's really, really nice. Once you start seeing, placing where the light is, it makes a big difference. So I have a bit of, again, I kind of drew where the shadow part is from the chair. from the chairs and the table leg. And they're casting a shadow over the sunny part. So I'm keeping an eye on this, and I'm watching where I'm putting that dark in here, the dark part, the dark color. Okay. All right. Let's put some here, dark. You see, once we start putting the highlight, you'll see it. This is really dark here. So even if you use just Payne's gray in these parts, it's fine. Right there. And then we're going to bring in the brown and Payne's gray again with a touch of the, let's see. Okay, I don't want to make a mistake. And I think I was going to make a mistake. No, it was good. It was good. Okay. We're almost there with the dark part. And here. Okay, good. This is going to look really good. I'm going to try to use a round brush now, because this detail is a little bit, oh, wow. You can hardly see what I'm doing, and I can hardly see what I'm doing. So, but once we start putting the light part, it will look really good.
I'm here, Lael.
Hi.
Is it too complicated to tell me what you're doing?
No,
So
I would. No problem. I'll stop. When I stop recording, I will explain. But basically, you need to have raw umber, Payne's gray, and titanium buff. These three colors.
Okay, great. And you're just doing under the chairs.
Yes. Anything from here, from the back to the front.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. This is going to take a while because it's it's kind of a between dabbing and painting and adjusting the values, and but once it's done, it will look really good.
So you want it to be more of a gray than anything?
Yeah, grayish brown. So whatever you get, it's fine. It really, whatever you get, it's more of where the dark is and the light, where I'm putting the darks. So the darker part is in the back and the lighter part is when you like down here, right here. This is only Payne's gray right here. So it has to be really dark.
Okay.
Because that creates depth. That shows that you know what I mean? Like it looks like this is in really far back and this is out.
Right.
It helps with that. Okay. I'm going to stop for a minute, pause, and then we can continue after. Okay, so let's paint the light part. So it's not really going to be the last layer, but we will start with kind of a medium tone layer of the light, and then we'll add on it. On top of that, we'll start adding, we'll highlight slowly, adding more layers and stronger highlights in certain areas. But this highlight right now, what we're doing is going to show us where these beautiful shadows, reflection of the legs of the chairs and the legs of the table, and all of that beautiful stuff that's happening down here. So let's mix, take titanium buff and put some raw umber in it and a little bit of Payne's gray. Keep it more on the kind of on the raw umber part side, on the raw umber side. It's like a gray. If you look at it, it's a gray.
No, yours looks like a light gray.
Yeah, it's like a light gray. It is. Yeah, it is a light gray. So now I'm going to start from, let's see. Okay, let's start from here. Let's start from here. I'm just going to start putting my, okay, this is not the right brush. Okay. As long as you don't have, sorry, I'm going to change my brush. As long as you don't have a line. So what you want to do is make sure that your brush stroke is in organically, kind of like, you could see the edges are on a different level. They're not all next to each other, neatly done. You don't want them to have, you don't want to have a line in there, a neat line. So we're going to do, except for here, this is where this table is casting a shadow. So we're going to be kind of more careful here. So remember, this sunlight or the sunny part is on pebbles. So it's not straight. It has a kind of a movement that looks like, when you look at pebbles on a sun on pebbles and you have a shadow, the shadow is not straight. It's kind of bumpy. The edge is bumpy right there.
But that's quite a small brush, isn't it, Lael?
Oh, number 4. Not too small. No, it's not too small.
Okay.
No.
She started going on the other side of the camera and she was versus the model, it shows her around modeling agency and this thing called fashion forward, which is a business for wannabe models to learn, which was ESL online, and she's an influencer. Learns. There's a few YouTube channels and a couple of TV shows, so she's really busy.
Oh, this is too light.
Well, when she started at Ryerson, it was gonna be a good thing, and then she finished at Ryerson. We couldn't get that,
If you make your color, your paint a little bit wet, like if you wet your paint and not make it too thick, it will be better when it dries.
better on the-
Mine is more of a beige. Is that?
Because you're putting too much, you're adding too much of the titanium buff. But that's fine. That's fine. As long as you can have over that more highlights, you can make it lighter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yours looks quite light on the screen.
On the screen, it's not that light actually on the screen. So it's not bad. It depends on your monitor though. It's a kind of the right color for some reason, which is, it doesn't work. It's working this time. Usually it's lighter on the screen,
Right.
but if you find that it's light, because you wanted to add, we want to add at least 2 more layers over this.
Yeah.
Add a little bit of brown in certain areas instead of just the same color going across. Change the color a bit. Same value, kind of, but change the color a bit from gray to a little bit more brown. Take your time in this area. Don't rush. I'll go back to it in a minute. I'm going to finish this and then I'll go back to that area there. You can, when when you get to this part here, you can add a little bit more of the titanium buff. It doesn't have to be that dark. Making sure here that my shadow looks kind of bumpy a bit, because that's what you see in the picture. In the reference, you see that this part, because the light is on pebble, it's not straight, it's a bit bumpy. But we don't have to worry about that detail right now. We're mostly now is getting where the light is, especially underneath the chairs, because that's what makes this picture look really interesting.
So Lael, I'm still leaving a little bit of black showing from the gesso.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't need to, it doesn't have to, you don't have to cover it completely.
Yeah.
It's fine. Starting to see a really nice light underneath the chairs. I'm going to stop in a minute. I'm just going to finish this part, and I'll pause. Because this part, you need to take your time. is really complicated in here. Shadows are following the shape, the round shape that you see here. So we have to take time and make sure that we get them all. Good. Right. This is good. Adjust my shadows a bit before I continue with my highlights. All right, titanium buff, raw umber, and we're going to start highlighting a little bit more. The left hand side, bottom part, right here. So do that. So the strong highlight in here is mostly right over here. You know, I don't want it to look flat. I need to have that textured look because this is pebbles, right? So let's go from the inside out. We have a really strong one here. And here. So I'm going to start with the inside where I have the strong light. That's what happens when you start adding strong highlights right away, you get flat. So you want to do it slowly using a different value. Go medium tone and then highlight over that. Because you need a dark background to be able to put a strong highlight. especially when we're doing something like this, which is like a pebble textured background. It's too much of a strong light. I'm just gonna pause for 1 minute. Okay. If you get in, if you're doing this and you get a little bit more of the brown on your brush, that's okay. Don't try to remove it. We will be, I think I did this like about 3 layers when I was doing it on before this part here. So it was dark first, and then I started putting a bit of a medium tone and then highlights. I believe even the last layer, I added a tiny bit of white closer to the chairs. Add a tiny little bit of, sometimes, just pick up a bit of that Payne's gray and add it when you're highlighting, just a tiny little bit, so it doesn't look like it's all done. All the highlight is in the same color. Just a little bit here and there. It's just variety. The acrylic dries darker, so we have to adjust the highlights slowly. Now I'm going to take a bit of more medium tone, not too much of a highlight, not too strong. And I'm going to put a couple of little kind of dabs of sun. Last layer, just gonna bring some titanium white. This is the last layer. I'm gonna bring in titanium white and mix it with my titanium buff. And I'm going to put a bit of this mixture here. This is not white. It looks white on the screen. It's not white. It's a light titanium buff. That's all. It's just lighter titanium buff, but it's not white. Really a very small amount of white. I think we can get away with only titanium buff, but just closer to the chairs here. I'm just going to put a bit of mixture of titanium buff and white. Put water on your brush so you get more like a glaze. It's not too heavy, not too thick, because when it dries, it will dry softer. If I find that I put too much white, I go back and grab a bit of titanium buff and soften that white. And I'm just going to slowly add fewer and fewer dabs when I get further away from the chairs. This is when we need the fast forward button or fast button. All right. All right, that's good. I'm just going to do this corner and then we're good. So this is how it looks this week. we managed to do all of the background, the lower part of the background, and the shadows and light. Next week, we'll start working on the table and then the chairs.